So welcome to everybody in the room. Welcome to everybody on the Zoom. This is one of our first hybrid events, so just bear with us as we try and accommodate all the folks. A few housekeeping things, treats in the back. My daughter loves when I come home with donuts, but I would prefer not to, so please eat some things, coffee, tea, decaf on that side of the room. There is a lonely little compost bin over in this corner. So everything in all the servingware is all compostable. So please do make use of that. Well, let us know if it needs to be swapped out. Bathrooms are just out past where you came in, straight down that hallway if you need to take a break. Hopefully that gets you accommodated for everything to have a great session. Can everybody hear me okay? Oh, great. Thanks. Everybody's so on it this morning. This is great. Okay, this is our first reverse pitch event. So I want to make sure that I thank some of the folks who made this possible. We are still a relatively new program. We started in 2021, just named our 2024 demonstration cohort. I want to point out at least one of those participants that's in the room, Carbach. Linda, can you give a hi? Yeah. Who will be doing a really cool pilot project with the city of St. Paul this year. So absolutely go talk to Linda afterward to find out more about that. But as we look at how do we bring more innovation and clean tech into Minnesota, we have to look at not only how do we serve the startups who are pilot ready, how do we go further back into the journey? People who are in Boys and Girls Club, Junior Achievement. Folks who, Logan Trader is here with the Minnesota State Center for Energy Excellence. How do we work with higher ed, our friends at University of Minnesota? So we're really trying to look at how do we create the funnel to get people into these innovation pathways and equip them with everything, or at least as much as we can bring to the table for them. So I want to give a really big thanks to Launch Minnesota. Indeed, Rob, can you put your hand there? Who has enabled some of this programming with their education grant to Grid Catalyst and our partners under our Clean Tech Innovation Pathways work. And thank the Department of Commerce and Clean Energy Economy Minnesota, because this programming is also enabled by the new Minnesota Energy Alley. So lots of great stuff. You'll hear me say it a million times. We can't do anything without partnership. So I also want to thank MinCor, Minnesota Cup, and the Technological Leadership Institute, all partners at the University of Minnesota, for helping us host this today. Didn't know already, Minnesota Cup applications are open. Kaylin will come up here in a moment and talk about that. But that's such a big part of how we nurture the clean tech innovation ecosystem here. So Kaylin's going to come up and talk about Minnesota Cup, and then we're going to get to our speakers.
All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Nina, for hosting us here today. We're very excited for this reverse pitch event. Thank you all for being here. As she mentioned, my name is Kaylin Oliver. I am the Associate Director of Minnesota Cup. If you don't know, MinCup is the largest statewide startup competition in the nation. We're based over at the Carlson School of Management, the Home Center for Entrepreneurship. We've been around since 2005, actually our 20th year this year. And over the past 20 years, we've been able to support 23,000 entrepreneurs in building their ideas, launching their companies. We've given away $5.4 million in no strings attached, non-dilutive capital. And our alumni have gone on, and they've raised $1.1 billion to drive the economy here in Minnesota. Yeah, pretty cool, right? So I'm here today because, as Nina mentioned, our applications for the 20th season are open right now. For those entrepreneurs or individuals with ideas in the audience, we do have a specific division in MinCup for energy and clean tech. It's perfect for any ideas that come out of today. And I know that Nina's running some workshops next week to kind of help you flesh out those ideas and prepare for your application. So those applications are completely free. All of our program is free. Really what we're doing is we are providing the top 90 companies in Minnesota each year with critical feedback from judges, mentorship opportunities, networking opportunities, and we give away $400,000 in cash prizes every year. So it's a fantastic opportunity to really get to the next step in your entrepreneurial journey and your startup journey. And I encourage anyone with ideas to apply. They will close on April 12th. We'll have some slides up at the end with some links to applications. There's also some flyers in the back as well. So that is my spiel, but thank you all. And thank you, Nina, for the chance to share.
I am so proud to be a Minnesota Cup judge because it is such a cool thing to see folks at every stage of their development. And I just want to mention, sometimes folks will write themselves out of the story. Not ready. It's not the moment. I got to spend another year on this. And to be honest, in our pilot project cohort, that may be true. You really have to be at a certain level and in it. Minnesota Cup is there from the idea stage to the late stage, really runs the gamut. So we just want to really land that message that if you've got something brewing, this is the time to test it. Maybe it won't be your best year at Minnesota Cup, but it's a great place to get started, and we're really lucky to have it in the ecosystem. So with that, I'm going to bring up our first speaker from the city of St. Louis Park. Ellie is the sustainability coordinator, and I just want to give, rather than her bio, just a quick prompt as we think about the reverse pitch structure for Cleantech. Yes, we need deep science run by PhDs and mechanical engineers, chemists, and that stuff is great. We also need social innovation. How do we get the emerging technology into the hands of the people who need it? It's great that we have electric vehicles. How do we get more people to be able to afford, have access to those and charging? So I really think about inviting cities to participate in this because they see on the ground what's needed to decarbonize, to create community access, to improve equity. So not to give you too much lead in there, but I really just want to set that framing of why we have such a wide range of speakers today. So invite you up. Juggling 15 things.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Ellie Rabine. I'm a sustainability specialist with the City of St. Louis Park. I've been in this role for just over 2 years. I'm thrilled to be here, and I do just want to say that I did just find out yesterday that I would be here after a 10-day international trip. I just got back 2 days ago, so bear with me if I'm a little rusty. A little background on the City of St. Louis Park. We are a first-ring suburb of over 50,000 residents, with over 40% of those residents being renters. This is compared to 37% in Hennepin County and 31% in the metro area. We have a very high population of renters. I was hired to help implement our city's climate action plan, which was adopted by the City Council in 2018 and calls for community-wide carbon neutrality by 2040. When this plan was adopted in 2018, it was the most ambitious climate goal in the state. And I'm really proud to work for a community that has set such an example for others to follow. Our work here at the city in the sustainability division focuses primarily on reducing greenhouse gas emissions in 2 sectors, and that is buildings and transportation. Together, these account for 97% of all of the greenhouse gas emissions in our entire community. Local governments, however, have very few levers available to us when it comes to climate action. We can only require so much. We can only require people to take action in very limited circumstances. The bulk of what we do is offer incentives to make the more climate-friendly choices the most economical. So at the city, my team and I dream up innovative incentive programs that are designed to encourage people to choose the most climate-friendly equipment and to drive electric vehicles and to behave in ways that limit their household emissions. We currently have financial incentive programs that are available for people who live in every type of housing or work in any type of business or nonprofit organization. We help them save a little bit of money up front in order to save on energy in the long run. Since I suspect that most of my fellow speakers here today will be focusing on equipment and devices, I'm going to focus most of my pitch on something that I consider the toughest nut to crack, and that is human behavior. So, like Nina said, it can be one of the toughest things to change. Okay, thank you. If the climate-friendly choice causes most people to be even mildly inconvenienced, we've discovered that they just will not do it. So, our need at the city is twofold. We need policies and social innovation to make climate-friendly choices also the most convenient. And we need technological innovation to reduce the cost of clean energy technologies and to improve battery safety. So my pitch to all of you today is to help us grow participation in our incentive programs. As I said, we have cost share incentive programs available to homeowners and property owners of every scale with very small barriers to entry. However, getting people to actually know that these programs exist, which is a hurdle in and of itself, and also having the time, dedication, resources, and money to take advantage of these programs can be very difficult. This is also why these properties are simultaneously dealing with issues of staff turnover in multifamily properties, and also a lack of consistently available HVAC contractors who are equipped to deal with modern technology. Next, we need you to help us get people out of single occupancy vehicles and into public transportation, micro-mobility vehicles such as e-bikes, and their own 2 feet. We need people to drive less, drive smaller, and drive electric. And that can only happen through policy change and a massive cultural shift. Next, we need you to help us get people to buy less and to recycle and compost more. This is another issue that requires massive cultural and behavioral shifts. One that is really personal to me is we need you to help us solve the split incentive problem for tenants and property owners. So for those of you who are not familiar with the split incentive problem, this is when the distribution of cost and benefit is not equally distributed between property owners and tenants. For example, when a property owner is responsible for the cost of an energy improvement, but the energy savings are passed on to the tenants, they have no motivation to make this improvement. Likewise, if tenants are not responsible for certain energy bills, such as heat the large boiler controlled building, they have no motivation to make energy saving behavioral changes, such as turning down their thermostat. This is not something that we can enforce. This is a huge problem for the over 11,600 multifamily households in the city of St. Louis Park alone. And it's also a huge problem for the number of commercial businesses that are owned by out-of-state property owners and rented by local property owners that then have no control over the HVAC that is going into their building. Finally, if we are going to rely on lithium-ion batteries, we need to make them safer to use and dispose of. Policymakers will point to the growing number of LIB fires as a reason not to install EV chargers or e-bike hubs. So we need to get out ahead of that. This is just a small glimpse into the life of and the difficulties facing local government when it comes to making climate action solutions. So I am really interested to hear everyone's thoughts on our issues. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ellie. And I want to give Ellie some extra thanks for coming in late to substitute for someone. So you never would have guessed she had about 24 hours to flip into that spot. So extra grateful. Next, we've got Bill Weber. Gonna maybe shrug this off, but one of my favorite humans because he's working in climate tech with 3M Ventures. 3M is one of the most foundational partners we have at Grid Catalyst. They're part of our innovators network and have done a lot with our startups. So thanks, Bill. Great.
Thanks, Nina. Hope this doesn't fall off. Okay, so I'm Bill Weber. I am in the internal business building side of 3M Ventures. And our job is to locate high value unmet needs in the market that are appropriate for 3M to go after, and then build new businesses from scratch to hopefully solve problems within that space. So one of the things that I grapple with every day is how can a company the size of 3M help solve the climate crisis while still making money, because we're a public company with shareholders and we have to do both of those things. And so it's a really interesting challenge. We work with startups all the time. We work with inventors all the time, and we work with other large companies all the time. So if you have an idea in some of the areas that I'm going to talk about, and maybe others, please bring it to us. My team is adept at, I'm not going to say we can work at the speed of a startup, but we can come close. And we do these things all the time. We're very comfortable with it. So if you have ideas in these spaces, please bring them to us. A lot of these areas are going to be, I think, a mystery to a sizable percentage of people here. I'm not going to do a lot of explanation today, because if I'm describing problems that are appropriate for you, you're going to get it. And then we can talk some more during the Q&A session. Sorry, I'm not going to be able to stay after this. I have to leave almost straight away. Nina is going to provide all of our contact information so you can reach out to me via email. I'm going to leave a stack of business cards so you can grab one of those. And the only thing I would ask is that if you're an inventor or a startup, when you reach out to me, don't share your IP up front. Just so that we get our relationship started with covering all confidentiality on both sides of the pipeline. Okay, so I'm going to talk about 4 areas: carbon capture, hydrogen economy, direct lithium extraction, and nuclear energy. So starting with carbon capture, lots of different ways to capture carbon, lots of different ways to sequester carbon. I love the work that CARB is doing. It's really interesting. So let's start with direct air capture, where 3M is already participating today, making carbon capture materials for a company called Svante, which is headquartered in Vancouver. Here are some problems with direct air capture. When I say that, what I mean is moving carbon dioxide that we have already released into the atmosphere directly out of the atmosphere, not at a factory, not at a manufacturing facility, but in the air that's just around us. One of the ways that this is done is by absorbing it in a sorbent and then releasing it. That releasing process uses up a tremendous amount of energy, and it's one of the barriers to pounding down the cost of direct air capture, which we really need to do. $750 to $1,000 a ton today. We need to get it down in the vicinity of $100 a ton. We can see a path to get it down to 500, 400, maybe 350. It's going to take real innovation that is years and years away to get it down as low as we need to get it. So we are looking for sorbents that can be regenerated at lower temperatures, sub 100 degrees C. If we can get it down to 70, it makes a tremendous difference. We're also looking for sorbents that can be regenerated in new regeneration methods without the use of water. A lot of the methods today use a lot of water. That is going to be an increasing problem as our climate continues to change and freshwater supplies are diminished. We're also interested in solutions to thermal management within DAC systems. So if you think about a system that relies on chemistry to capture CO2, one of the things that you would like is air that always looks the same as it's coming into the system to come in contact with the chemistry. But if you're running a DAC plant in North Dakota, those incoming air conditions are very, very different than if you're running a direct air capture facility in Louisiana. And so we're looking for ways to control that. If we now move to point source carbon capture, this means capturing carbon where it's emitted, like at a plant. There are lots of different CO2 concentrations within different waste gas streams, flue gas streams. So if you're running a natural gas power generation plant, there's only about 4% of CO2 in that stream, that flue gas stream. If you're running a concrete plant, you're above 20%. That needs different materials and different chemistries. And so we are looking for things that can be tuned to the gamut. And that could be sorbents, could be MOFs, it could be something brand new. And then we are also looking for carbon capture membranes. The big advantage to membranes is they don't have to be regenerated, because you don't capture it and then heat it up to release the CO2. You're just pulling the CO2 out of the stream as it happens. Facilitated transport membranes, other technologies, we'd be interested in talking about these things. And I should say, incidentally, that I chose all these topics and these specific things because we have manufacturing facilities that can make a lot of these materials already. Remember, I said we need to make money. One of the ways that we make money by doing this is using equipment that we already have in order to do that. Okay, I've got just a little time left. Hydrogen economy. We're interested in hydrogen separation membranes. We need to be able to get hydrogen out of other gas streams, like natural gas, so we can move it around more easily. We are looking for electrolyzer membranes to generate hydrogen that do not have fluorinated materials in them. We're looking for novel materials for bipolar plates, which are a part that goes into electrolyzers. In terms of direct lithium extraction, most lithium today is taken out of brines. We have a lot of very low concentration brines in the United States. There's lots of different technologies for going after that. We need more efficient technologies. So if you have some direct lithium extraction ideas, we would love to hear about them. And then finally, our next gen nuclear reactors are going to be molten salt reactors. That is a complex and difficult ecosystem within those reactors. And we're looking for coatings that could help extend the life of those reactors. Thank you.
Thank you. It feels sometimes like a total travesty to ask smart people like this to cover all that in 7 minutes, but so far, our first two speakers have really stepped up to the challenge. So Jeremy, the bar has been set very high. So I want to mention two things about Jeremy before he introduces himself. One, always fun to have folks that you go way, way back with. And so Jeremy, Greg and I have all this background in some of the Bio Business Alliance work from years ago. And so it's always fun to have a friend in the mix. But also, I am not an expert in water technology, certainly not an expert in what Bill was talking about. So really glad that smart people like Jeremy can come in here and talk about these categories within clean tech that we're not always thinking about and really hit a range. So all you.
Awesome. Thank you, Nina. Good morning, everyone. Friendly faces. I have not done a speech like this in a very long time. So oops, I'm setting my timer because I don't know how long I'm going to talk.
Kalen's got you covered. Lily's got you covered.
Oh, no, this is for my benefit. I will go as long as you let me. 25 years ago, I wrote a business plan in the state of Minnesota on the biosciences. And that started my journey in technology. I was working at the city of St. Paul on a little project called University Enterprise Laboratories. I was a project manager for that warehouse that ultimately became what UEL is, just a stone's throw away, what that is today. So I was project manager, learned about the technologies. I put a company into the building called Siemens Nanotech. Brilliant technology, or it was at the time. And that started my curiosity into business plans, business models, technology. I spent 8 years at an organization that I was a founder of called Bio Business Alliance. It launched about the same time that Minnesota Cup did. Got to know John very well with Minnesota Cup, was a judge for a long time there. And then in 2012, I broke out on my own, and I was hired by local leaders to interview all the CEOs in town on the water technology industry. So think Ecolab, think Pentair. There's a lot of aeration technologies here. And that started my life in the water industry. And so fast forward to today, I work with an international consulting firm called Thales Water Advisors. We work with private equity markets and are involved with most of the largest transactions in the water industry today. I also have a strong passion for early stage companies, and I'm reminded of that daily, that that's not where the markets are in terms of what our investors are looking for. So this is a mature your business models concept. So let me step back and say, why water? Why am I here today for clean economy with a water as the water guy? Part is water touches everything. So you think about what Ellie just said and what Bill just said, they both talked about lithium. I was listening to a podcast by one of the water thought leader podcast guys on lithium and the water space, because we can't get enough lithium to fuel our phones, to fuel our computers, our digital lifestyle. And so there's a lot of invention that needs to happen. And that touches everything that that Nina's working on, that Greg's working on, and the team. If you look at water, it's in every headline. So lead service lines is a big deal right now. We're working as a country to identify and eliminate the lead service lines. PFAS is a big deal. The EPA's got very active in that. We don't have enough sensors right now to actually detect what the EPA is outlining in terms of the regulations. We can't even find the level of parts per trillion PFAS, and that's what we're being regulated to as water utilities. So you can hear the need that, echoing what Bill said in terms of invention, there's a lot of invention that needs to happen in very complex places. But it's not just the PhDs that need to work on the invention, it's also the business models, the social adoption. And that is what I'm most passionate about, because I spent COVID, my wife and I moved to Northfield during COVID, and I spent COVID building a database of all the companies that I could find in the world that touched water. And not just water, but digital. That's really my sweet spot is digital transformation and water as a service, if you think of it in that way. Business model reinvention is at the heart of the invention here. It's taking the brilliant ideas and then figuring out how do we turn this into a business that is scalable, is adoptable. The 3M could scale to 50 million to 100 million. That is at the heart of a lot that I think people forget about. I'm not the brilliant scientist that's inventing X, but yes, you are. The social science side of things is at the heart of all of this. So it takes a team. It's not just the financial side. It's not just the technical side, not just the business side. It's all of those together. And that's where the magic really starts to happen. So I'm going to back up real quick because I know I'm running out of time. When you think about water, put it into context of a family tree. What do I mean by that? You've got water quality, you've got water quantity. It's scary when you read the headlines and you don't have context. So always, my recommendation would be to always put it into context of family trees. Water's devalued. We don't have it as something that counts, and yet it's in fintech. It's in property tech. And Ellie and I were talking about in the property side, we don't even think of water as something that you would think about in an apartment perspective because it's so devalued, and yet it's so important in general. So always try and put it in perspective of where does this fit? There's 5 major areas that I look at as a consultant in the water industry. It's agriculture, it's municipal, it's residential, it's industrial, and it's commercial. Residential or agriculture, municipal, residential, industrial, commercial. I look at it from a hardware and software side, and the improvements for adoption have to be at least 30% cost savings at the start. You can't do that. Keep pushing in terms of what you're doing. You won't get the mind. When I'm working with investors or executives, if you can't start the conversation with 30% cost savings, you won't get the mind share of someone like Bill, who has hundreds of things that you could look at in a day. And if I'm bringing you a technology or if I'm bringing you a company, I want it to be sticky. I want you to think about it at night when you're making dinner. That's the way to think about your technology. Have I taken my business model far enough that I'm making someone's lives better that much faster? So I'll step back with that. The last thing I'll say, which is the classic thing that a Minnesota Cup judge for over 10 years, I don't know in how many categories, I forget. Know your customer, talk to your customer every day, and know how you get money from their pocket to your pocket, and start with that. Not be greedy, but that's what business is. And if you can't figure out how to make that as frictionless and as painless as possible, keep thinking. So I'll leave it with that. Thanks, Nina.
Thank you, Jeremy. See, water guy. That's all encompassing there. But I also should have said this at the beginning. Jeremy was one of the first calls I made, probably right after Greg Mast, in deciding we were going to launch Grid Catalyst as a founder. And if you're a founder in the room, I can tell you that's a guy you want to have on your speed dial. So thank you, Jeremy. All right, we're going to have Al Innes come up from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. So some adjacency here as we go, since PFAS was just brought up, and anything else of excellence that Al is going to talk to us about today.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Al with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. And I'm here to give my very first pitch for sustainable chemistry solutions targeted at ongoing human health and environmental problems. First, though, I want to recognize the 35 plus years of pollution prevention and 20-some years of green chemistry work, which has already been invested in Minnesota and elsewhere. I hate to think where we would be if we hadn't recognized the need to shift from control and treatment only. But this is a marathon. Chemistries with various toxicities, which are used in products, appear to be an increasing burden on our indoor and outdoor environments, to people, and to wildlife, with many factors in play, such as constant expansion of the economy, manufacturing, consumption, and chemistries, the inability of control and treatment technology to adequately prevent the dispersion of toxics, leading to contamination and cleanup costs, increasing detections of toxics and their breakdown products in the environment and in the human body, leading to our better understanding of the mobility of toxics locally, regionally, and globally, and their persistence when they don't break down readily, and their accumulation in our environment. There's growing evidence of harm by research that links toxic chemicals and mixtures of them to environmental and human health harms. There's a history of use and regret, continuing experiences with new chemistries being adopted into commerce without full public knowledge of their potential for harm, only to have to engage in expensive cleanup and healthcare after the fact. A growing movement towards citizens' right to know about toxic chemicals in their products and their right to limit their exposures through their product choices. And of course, an increasingly global view. We are not only concerned with impacts in Minnesota, but way beyond, where they affect workers, residents, and local environments, wherever they are manufactured, but then also cross boundaries to affect the entire continent or world. Since 2010, the MPCA has been supporting increased use of green and sustainable chemistry by companies that is taught by educators and that is developed by innovators. Sustainable Chemistry Prize we sponsor at the Minnesota Cup, ongoing of course, is an example of our investment. That investment is across the board. So green chemistry can be applied by those trained in it whenever opportunities arise, but we also seek to support greener, more sustainable chemistries to solve some of our common, sometimes standing environmental and human health challenges. So that's why I'm here today, to present to you some examples of challenges. I will mention just some of the sustainable chemistry technology needs gathered by Change Chemistry, a primarily business-to-business chemistry improvement organization. First, in formulated consumer products, the companies need better antimicrobials and preservatives, surfactants, biodegradable components, such as chelators, rheology modifiers, film formers, improved raw materials for fragrance and conditioners. Flame retardants, we need more non-halogenated versions, but also non-chemical solutions. Material and design changes to products which make them inherently more flame resistant. Monomers and polymers, oil-based versions or coatings, non-bisphenol A polycarbonate, or a similarly hard transparent plastic, or other polymers which have been demonstrated to be biodegradable or real-world recyclable. Adhesives without formaldehyde, methylene diphenyl diisocyanate, methyl alpha ketone, chloroprene monomer, or PFAS or polyfluoroalkyl substances. Batteries without cobalt or ethylene glycol dimethyl ether, Coating technologies, bio-based monomers and resins, use of nanocellulose, water-based coatings, which can be used for at low temperatures. And also PFAS-free spreading and leveling agents and coatings as well. Corrosion inhibitors without chromates and other heavy metals, pigments, alternatives completely free of PCB contamination, or which use non-toxic titanium dioxide. Polyurethanes without isocyanates, fabric finishes. Even after a lot of work, we still need more options. PFAS-free options for water and soil repellent clothing and consumer products. And also for many other purposes such as personal protective equipment to shield against, for instance, bloodborne pathogens and liquid chemical splashes. So these are some examples of sustainable chemistry technology needs. You can Google Change Chemistry Startup Network. Change Chemistry Startup Network, find the complete list. So in closing, these and many more sustainable chemistry challenges need innovation, persistence, and funding. Takes time to displace incumbents. No different than gaining adoption of most new technologies. But local innovator and incubator networks like this and the national networks such as Change Chemistry are a great way to get hooked into the needs and the solutions being sought and to form the creative partnerships which are so essential. So let's engage in innovation with a public purpose. Let's solve some of our economy's grand sustainable chemistry challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. I'm gonna have to go back and watch that on Zoom to catch that whole roster. It's kind of immense when you think about the need. But the other thing is this just keeps reminding me of why Minnesota has all the things we need to be the leader in clean tech. We build on everything we've already done as a state. We have all these smart people. We have all this technology capability. We have all the big companies, academic institutions, state agencies, got all the stuff, right? It's just about our ambition to do it. So that's maybe why I think about bringing Richard Graves up on that note, because someone who has really led Minnesota in the sustainable building space for a long time, and who in my work with him has always said, vision should be bigger, we can do more, really sets the bar. And I've just been so honored to work with him over the years on some incredible building projects. So welcome Richard Graves, the director of the Center for Sustainable Building Research at the University of Minnesota.
Thank you, and I have slides. I apologize. I'm an architect. I can't talk without. But while Nina gets the slides up, so I'm Richard Graves. I'm the director of the Center for Sustainable Building Research at the University of Minnesota. The director. But we work. So it's a, Center for Sustainable Building Research doesn't really describe all the things that we do. I have kind of a long history, almost 30 years now, working on generative design before anyone was even really talking about what generative design is. When I first took over the center, I thought about renaming the center to be the Center for Studies in Building Regeneration, because that work is more than just buildings, kind of system redesign and how do buildings kind of fit into a broader context, which I think is important for this group. So, unlike some of the other speakers, I'm probably at a really high level as what are we doing here as kind of our what's the innovation that we're doing, technology redesign, and how are we doing all that and kind of remaking the way we think about technology and having a kind of bigger context of what's the goal here. It's not really about kind of an individual technological innovation or one patent or one idea or one company startup or any of those kinds of things. So my talk will probably be completely useless if you are just ahead of trying to start a company to immediately make some money. However, I think this talk will be very useful for anyone in the room who's thinking about how does my particular idea, my particular startup, and ideas that I have, how does it relate to a bigger vision, and how can that persist over time and really do something innovative. So with that, and I'm already 2 minutes into a 7-minute talk. So what's regeneration? What we're trying to do here is we're trying to provide for human needs, whatever those might be. That's education, that's a job, that's health, that's all of the things you could think about within ecological limits using technology. That's what regenerative design is. It's not rebranding and taking the crap we typically do and call sustainable and just saying, okay, well, that's not cool anymore. I'm now going to call it typical crap regeneration. That's going to remake myself. If it's not structurally changing what we do to accomplish what I just said, it's not regenerative design. It's also not regenerative design. It's a building or a widget or whatever, and you don't understand how that relates to a larger system of things. So, well, whatever, ignore that. So typically when we think about kind of greening things, this is kind of our 50-year history of thinking about innovation, sustainable design, green. Typically we focus on efficiency. We're going to just make things a little bit more efficient. Or we think about mitigating our waste streams. We're going to make our waste, we're going to dilute it more. We're going to change it in some way. But fundamentally, we just think of things as one-way systems. We think somehow that's going to change. Regenerative systems, think of.
Get an extra minute. You'll get an extra minute.
Regenerative systems think of things in cycles. So it's about redistributing resources, and it's thinking about, we have multiple sources of things as we're using energy, using water, using materials, whatever those things are, we're redistributing those things in the system, using them. Hopefully we're reusing and using those things in cycles. We're then storing things in some way because we're trying to align, how are we extracting it or getting solar energy from solar panels or capturing water from roofs or whatever. We have some kind of storage technology to figure that out and how to align our capture of things with our use of things. And then there really is no waste stream, ideally. It's how does that waste get used by another process? How does it get assimilated back into the environment as it would as part of a natural cycle. So this is our goal. And this has been kind of the goal that I've had to figure out how to get the built environment to do this for almost 30 years now. So I'm sharing this as all of your ideas, think about it in this context and say, are there adjustments I need to be made to my idea? Are there opportunities I have if I understand the system, that there's an opportunity here nobody's thinking about because I understand the larger kind of system context of things. Someone's waste stream can be a supply to my product or whatever, and that creates an opportunity. And thinking in this way is going to increasingly get more and more important in our ever-changing world of climate change impacts, restrictions in sources of materials, being able to extract things given energy limits, water limits, all these other things. More and more, we're going to be, it's a nice to have kind of academic exercise to think of things as a regenerative system, but increasingly it's not going to be an academic exercise. It's going to be a necessity. So 2 minutes with my extra minute I just got. So all these changes are going on, and how is regenerative design kind of a way that we can use to inspire things that we're doing in a variety of contexts, not just buildings. So, and some changes that are also going to occur within the building industry. So we're going to continue to get more efficient and drive efficiency for energy and carbon in the built environment. You're going to see that happen with the energy code. One of the things, and this is a scale that shows kind of typical 2003 building and a building that's net zero energy, net zero carbon. And currently, code changes have got us almost half the way, kind of net zero energy carbon buildings. And in the future code changes, so not optional, not do I want to do this, every building will be ever more efficient down through here. But the thing that we don't realize is, you know, we'll have future code changes like we know that'll take us further down this graphic. Codes will eventually have to be more performance-based to achieve these goals. Then we'll get into a zone that's really about, the first speaker was talking about human behavior and getting, you know, it's getting to those energy uses in buildings that relate to human behavior will be getting us to the limit of energy efficiency. Then the question is, what's renewable supply and how do we do that? Do we do some in the grid or some not? Skip through this. How are buildings grid interactive? So we don't think about buildings in isolation. It's the building plus the grid, and the grid is our exchange system, that redistributing of things. We're using the grid not as a one-way supply, but a redistributor. How do we, you know, change the context of the way that we think about buildings? There's solar plus storage plus other things for energy. It's not just about energy, it's also about water. You know, our changing climate, precipitation, and the way water hands going to change, more intense rainfalls, periods of drought, et cetera, et cetera. We have building technologies that can capture rain, store rainwater in different ways, recycling gray water. All these water technologies in an increasingly water stressed world is going to change the way we think about water systems. Take things that are against code now and make them mandatory in many buildings. So with that, and wrapping up, time, just an extra minute. So if you want additional ideas, we have a website, 21st Century Development. I'll share a link at the end. It has a matrix of ideas across a whole variety of things, from place-based things to water issues, to energy issues, to health and happiness, materials, equity issues, beauty, et cetera. It shows you where those issues are kind of with current code buildings, better buildings, living level buildings, and then what's a regenerative design vision across all these things. It's just like this, go to the website, fixate on the stuff on the far right of the chart, because a lot of those things are, we do not know how to do this stuff on the far right of this chart, all the way through here across 20 things. Tons of places to go, maybe I have a company that could do that. Innovate and be the next startup. So with that, address, website, and development. One
Fantastic. Thank you, Richard. These are always the moments where I'm learning and listening too. So sometimes it just takes that processing. Some of you may be processing also. We've got some time for questions. So I would love if you want to tap the immense expertise of these folks. They've all been generous enough to say they would happily share their contact information. They're here because they want you to solve these problems, right? So this doesn't have to be the end of that conversation, but I'd love to take some questions in the room. And to our Zoom friends who maybe were feeling a little ignored, we would happily take a question via Zoom too, but questions in the room. Jonathan. And just our Zoom friends, you probably won't be able to see Jonathan. We're not that sophisticated here.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jonathan Eisenthal. I'm a freelance ag writer. I'm curious, this is open to all the presenters. What's the pathway to getting water to be a more valued commodity, a more valued presence in our lives?
Jeremy is coming to the front of the room, so is Mike ready? Go for it.
Great question. I wrote a op-ed recently. It's in MinPost about in the last 3-4 weeks, addressing some. I focus more on the water quantity side than on the quality side than on the quantity side. It's a massive issue. It's a policy issue. We see it, if you look for water policy issues, you see them every day in the local national press. We think of it in the West, in particular, the Colorado River Basin. What we've de-incentivized a lot of the ways to be efficient. So in the US, we have, I think it's 56,000 utilities that manage drinking water or wastewater. And they have an average of 3 employees. And there's this silver tsunami happening. And they're, you can imagine the expertise that's retiring right now that knows how to run these systems on duct tape with very, they're efficient for what they have, but they aren't getting the investments from the local communities at the way it is. What you asked is the question, and it's a profoundly challenging question. If you drive through the country, I drove up from Northfield, and so I get to see farm country every day. And if you drive through the country and you look at pivot irrigation on a field, if you look at that, that is just straight down into the. If you ask a farmer what the price of diesel is, they'll know within a nickel within the last week, and they'll know if it's rising or falling. If you ask a farmer what's the price of a gallon of water, it's free. It's the price of the energy to pump it up from the ground, because that's how water policy works. So even in a state where we have a lot of water, we actually have a lot of water issues, and both on quality and on quantity. So I'll pause there. I don't know if someone else wants to weigh in, but I'd be happy to talk to you more after.
Thanks, Jeremy. Okay, great. Other questions? Up here in the front.
So I have a question specifically for.
Could you just wait one moment? We're going to have Kevin bringing the mic. And then for those on Zoom, that was Jeremy Lenz answering that question since you couldn't see him on camera.
So I have a more specific question, specifically to you, Neil, that you mentioned that molten salt reactors will be the future. And will that work with or against smaller scale modular?
It's a great question. So I think that there is a competition with small modular, because small modular oftentimes is also a molten salt reactor. So I think sometimes these terms are interchangeable. I know that nuclear energy tends to be controversial in a lot of places. We've seen Japan back off. We've seen Germany back off. France is kind of all in on it. I will tell you, if you look at what the projections are for the future about what our energy needs are and low carbon energy, we cannot get from here to there without a whole lot more nuclear that is permitted more rapidly, that is safer, and does not contribute to the proliferation of nuclear weapons. And a lot of these new technologies do that. You can't get the stuff out of it that you need to build nuclear weapons. And when we were building nuclear power plants in the past, we were specifically designing them to let us get the stuff out that we needed to build nuclear weapons. So it's a whole new thing. There are real problems there. We need a ton of lithium-7 in order to run these molten salt reactors. Lithium-7, there's no gas state, so you can't centrifuge it to isolate it. Trying to figure out how to do that. We are working on that. Chlorine-37 is something else that we need a lot of. You can centrifuge it, but it's incredibly expensive. We need new techniques to isolate chlorine-37. So you probably went well beyond your question, but I think nuclear is a part of the future and we need to get comfortable.
Thank you, Bill. We've probably got time for one more question because everyone's a doozy so far. Don't be shy. It's not a place to be shy.
So a question for just about any panelist. You just mentioned Japan and Germany and France as countries that are approaching the clean economy or regenerative economy differently than the United States. Are there places that you're looking to for inspiration? And are there strengths in Minnesota that we should lean into.
So just a small question from Ben. You know, we love big questions from Forge North, so thanks, Ben. Bill's coming back up.
And I'll be fast so other people have a chance to answer. But I think cold climate technologies are coming out of this winter. I know it doesn't seem like we're going to need them. I think next winter we're going to need them again. But cold climate technologies and everything from carbon capture to energy storage, thermal energy storage, to solar energy and other renewables, when we don't get as much sunlight, how do we make the most of sunlight that we use within greenhouses in the air? I think there's a whole bunch of things that we are uniquely qualified to have an impact on that could spread all over the world. And so that's, and Nina, I think your organization does a great job focusing on those things.
Thanks, Bill. I'm a fan of winter, so we want to both keep it that way and make it wonderful to bring all those technologies here. So, Jeremy?
So the way I heard your question was, I hear it a little bit differently. And if we think about mining in particular, mining is an interesting one in Minnesota in particular. The Iron Range, amazing resources, global resources that we have, and we're mining some of it, but not all of it. It's very controversial. The question that I would ask is, how do we do comprehensive, safe mining so that we're driving the global economy with and doing safe mining from Minnesota? Can we do that? It's been controversial for a long time because we don't have the technologies to have confidence as a Boundary Waters person. We don't have the confidence that the Boundary Waters will be protected into the long term. The flip side of it is, where in the world, in the dark shadows of some economies around the world where we don't have insights, are we mining, and what's happening there from a human's toll, global toll in poor parts of the world? I think that is the heart of some of the questions, and that's a policy question as well as a technological adoption question.
Thanks, Jeremy. Richard, if you hadn't stepped up, I'd be disappointed.
So yeah, I mean, Germany, yay, all that kind of stuff. But the thing is, context is totally, we always look at Germany and Sweden and all this stuff. You go there, financial structure is different, the context is different, the inflows of all those things I had on the chart are different. So yeah, we can look for inspiration there, but there are other places to look for inspiration. You know, Australia, New Zealand are doing really interesting things about kind of assigning values to ecosystem services. How do you have technology that integrates with that? But at the same time, I think we need to dig in more here in Minnesota and what's kind of unique to Minnesota to achieve, you know, what would be a truly kind of regenerative economy in Minnesota, with what are some assets that we have, like crop waste that maybe we could be generating hydrogen from. It could be a big need to kind of balance out our energy stream. Mine waste that we have, you know, we've got huge piles of tailings in the Iron Range that they could only capture about a third of the iron ore originally when they were doing all that mining. That means there's 2/3 of the iron ore sitting there in big piles, waiting for someone to figure out how do we extract it out of there and use it for new materials. So I think kind of, I guess, yeah, it's good to be inspired by other places, but I think we need to kind of dig in more here in Minnesota, what's unique to this place, our assets and technology challenges here that we can innovate and share elsewhere. So.
Yes, all of that. What a great place to end for today. For our friends on Zoom, I'm just going to offer a closing remark, and then we'll have one more exercise here for the folks in the room. So we have this theory that Minnesota is the place where the clean tech economy can set the course for the next generation. Ambition, right? We have to own that. We have to want that. So I'm giving you an assignment, which is in your role. How do you be a part of that as we leave this room today? Is it by applying to Minnesota Cup? Is it by looking at how to get involved in Grid Catalyst? Are you one of the smarties that just spoke and you could be a mentor or an enabler in the work. We cannot do this alone, but we have everything it takes here to do this. We're just at the tip of the, oh man, I'm gonna say tip of the iceberg and then I hate myself, on this work. It's all out in front of us. So we are not short of the resources, the intelligence, the expertise, capabilities. Again, it is how we work together from here on out. So again, for our friends on Zoom, we have brainstorming workshops next week. On Tuesday, it's in person at McNamara. On Thursday, it's virtual. This is to help you if you're thinking about Minnesota Cup, but also if you're just trying to sort through everything you learned today and think about how you want to approach Bill Weber, how you want to approach Jeremy Lenz with your pitch. We want to make that resource available to you. Again, thanks to Launch Minnesota, Deed, Minnesota Energy Alley for enabling that programming for us. You can go to the Grid Catalyst website, which hopefully everybody has that information because you got here at some point to get those. We have an event tab where you can see the workshop signups. I also am going to make just an unabashed plug. We are a small organization. Kevion Ellis, our new program manager, raise your hand, say hi. Yep. It's just us with partners. But if you had a really great experience today, tell somebody. And if it's a phone call, fine. An email, great. You want to go on social media? Sure would appreciate that. So, tell people about what we're doing because it's really, I had people emailing me yesterday saying, do you have any events coming up? I was like, it's tomorrow. Are you coming? Like, you can still get in. So we need your help to get people into this conversation and into this story to be part of this. I don't want to see a clean tech economy where folks can't participate. And that's got to be the way that we do this. So I want to thank Sunrise Banks for hosting us. Fantastic community partner. I want to thank Lily in the back for making sure that we could get a great event together today. So if you're looking for a freelance event coordinator, Lily's the best. I want to thank our speakers who have been absolutely fantastic. I want to thank the Minnesota Cup team, Technological Leadership Institute, and MinCorp at the University of Minnesota, their partnership and today. And I'm going to say goodbye to our Zoom friends and say thank you. And then I'm going to do something for the folks in the room.